Hello, good afternoon.
Hi.
I can't hear you.
Hi.
I still can't hear you.
I'm not sure why. I'm not muted.
Okay, I hear you now. So, good afternoon. How are you?
I'm well. How are you?
I'm doing very good. We start these chats very simply. I ask you to tell us your name and share anything about us that will help us get to know you a little better.
My name is Dechelle Harris. I am an interior designer. I've been at that probably about 17 years now. Um, my background before that is in science. I have an undergraduate degree in biology, master's in interior design. I've worked in research labs and designed houses, and that's pretty much it.
Sounds like a very exciting career and diversity of education. So, that sounds wonderful. So, where do you live? Do you live in DC, New York? Where do you live?
Durham.
Live in North Carolina. And you moved from DC to North Carolina.
Hmm.
Can you share with us what it's like in DC? Can you give us an overall feel for what DC is like and what's there in terms of entertainment? I mean, all the things that you've enjoyed while you were in DC.
Um, well, I haven't been there for about 4 years now, but while I was there, it was very bustling, full of things to do. Um, Lots of art and entertainment, lots of culture, museums, uh, plays, theater, uh, very diverse, uh, great restaurants. Um, it was busy, but not as busy or bustling as what I've experienced when I've traveled to New York City.
That makes sense. So, can you tell us what, for the lane knowledge of us, what is interior design and what does it? What are the components of it? What makes it uh, interior design versus mechanical design or civil design? Can you describe that to us?
Interior design is the design of interior spaces. So it looks at the aesthetics and the functionality of interior, whether residential or commercial space, and seeks to improve upon it.
And tell me how art and creativity and color folds into interior design.
Um, it's what I'll say about interior design as far as why I became interested in, or I always knew from very early on that interior design was something that I was interested in and I wanted to pursue. Um, but my original intent with going to college was that I was going to become a doctor. And I spent a lot of time pursuing that, getting internships, traveling abroad, working in research labs. And I had a professor who was running a lab ask me why I wanted to become a medical doctor. And, I told him I wanted to help people. And in studying design, I realized that it's possible to help people in this way also. I think that interior design has an effect on people. The space that someone lives in has an effect on how they show up outside in the world, how they interact with people. I feel if you're not happy at home, it's very hard to be happy when you go out into the world and when you interact uh, with people. And what I found in uh, creating spaces for people is it does have a profound effect on their lives. If you make something more functional and easier to use and easier to learn in a space that's easier to learn in, that's easier to operate and function in, it greatly enhances people's lives, their well-being, and I would say it makes them better people. And whether that's tapping into who the person is, or who they want to be, who they aspire to be, uh, if they like color, if they like travel, if they're a minimalist person, but they're living in a cluttered space, all of that has an effect on the person and how they express themselves.
Very, very interesting. So, are you just residential interior designer, or do you do this commercially and other groups? Can you talk a little bit about that?
Primarily residential. I have done some commercial spaces, schools. I've done work on barbershops, preschools, boutique salons. So commercial in that sense, yes.
Okay. And do you have a business that supports you to do this? Do you have a team of people? I mean, can you describe what does it mean? Like, so if I were to hire you to do some interior design work for me, what would that look like? What would you need in order to pull off a project like that? Say to redo my kitchen or redo my floors or something of that nature.
Yeah, interior design definitely, it requires a team. I don't do the work myself. Basically, I create a plan, a design, and it requires a vast majority of people, skilled trades and laborers, to make that vision come to life. So whether that's a carpenter, a painter, electrician, a plumber, then you have your vendors, the retailer that is supplying the cabinets, the lighting, the countertops. So it's I'm an interior designer, but I'm also a project manager, because you have to keep all of these people moving and making sure that they're showing up and doing what they say they're going to do when they're going to do it, so that the vision is achieved to my expectation, as well as to the homeowner's expectation.
Interesting. Very, very, very interesting to know. So, you lived in DC. How long did you live in DC?
I was in DC for uh, 13 years.
And so during those 13 years, were you an interior designer the entire time?
I moved there to get a master's in interior design.
Can you tell me, did you encounter any difficulties as being a Black woman in the interior design field?
Um, I I don't know if I would necessarily call them difficulties. I think were there a lot of people, even, if I just started at the beginning of my interior design journey with school, uh, were there a lot of people in my classes that looked like me? No, there were not. Um, Art school, interior design school, it's very, very expensive. Um, the supplies are expensive. All the materials that you need to be able to produce the design renderings to complete the classes, it's a very expensive undertaking, and there's no guarantee that once you graduate that you will get some job that will pay you what you have invested. I believe I was taking a business class, a business intro to the business of interior design class, and I believe they said like a entry level interior designer makes $22,000 to $34,000 a year. The classes were $560 per credit hour. A class is minimally 3 credit hours. So there's no guarantee that when you come out that you're going to make a lot of money. And I just give this background to say that if you don't have support, or you don't have the means to, it could be the financial part of it can be exclusionary. then once you get out, uh, depending on where you want to go with interior design, if you work for a smaller firm, it's great because you learn the entire business. Your hands are in all the pots. Whereas if you work for a larger commercial firm, you're only seeing, like, usually they just have you on one specific thing. So, and that's what you do, whether it's drafting or sourcing textiles, that's your thing that you do. And um, to get to get a position with a large firm or with a smaller firm, it does require networking. Um, you don't see many people of color at any of the firms, whether it's a large firm or smaller. Um, when I was doing my internships and working at the Washington Design Center, which is a big place that designers go and source furniture, fabric, you very rarely saw any of the large designers, the big name designers. You very rarely saw any that were people of color. Their interns, usually the staff that they had working for them, were usually not people of color. They were not Black. Usually everyone was white. When you attended the functions, again, everyone is white, and it's, I don't want to say everyone because it's not everyone, but to see another person of color, you're, one or two in a pool of many other people that don't look like you. And there is kind of this feeling of, I don't belong here, but I just push through that, and you show up and you show up and you show up and you show up until you do belong there.
Yeah. So that's very interesting. I guess that's not very different from any of the other fields that people experience the lack of people of color in their industry. Did that impede you from getting jobs because you were a Black woman? Did it hurt you, or did it help you, or was there some benefit, or was your talent so good that it overwhelmed the race?
I felt like there was a skepticism. There is a skepticism that, as a Black person, that I felt that I would be greeted with from some of the bigger name interior designers, some of the bigger showrooms. Interior design is a luxury industry. So, when you're looking at these magazines and you're seeing these projects and they're on TV, these people have spent usually a lot of money. You can go into a showroom and, they're selling one sofa for, $20,000. And to get those types of clients, people that are going to spend $100,000 on a room, or, $30,000 on a bathroom, or you have to be in a certain sphere. Mm-hmm. And sometimes within that sphere, you're not going to see many minorities or people of color, Black people. And you get greeted with skepticism. As a Black, I felt that I was greeted with skepticism in, who are you? And how do you have good taste? Mm-hmm. How could you have good taste? Because where would you, if the perception is that Black people are poor, or they are uncouth, or don't have class, or whatever, as a Black woman, how could I have this? I remember I was working in a showroom one time, and I had a very, very successful interior designer. He'd been featured in a lot of magazines, come in and said to me, we were talking about something, and he made the offhanded comment that Black people love color. And I was a little taken aback by that, but um, I didn't say anything. I just thought it was a weird thing for him to say, particularly to me, and an untrue generalization.
Mhm. Okay, so I know this because I've seen you in magazines and on television. Can you talk a little bit about that and how did that benefit you or did that hurt you? Can you talk about that a little bit?
Um, I can't really say that it benefited me. Of course, it was good. Yes, I've been on TV and I've been in magazines, but I can't say that I saw an increase in business from that, from
Mm,
that exposure.
mm. And is it that do you think then that means that if you were white, that would have had more of an outcome for you if you were white or whatever the typical interior designer looks like?
Oh, I definitely think that with everything that I was doing at the time, I definitely feel like if I were white, that it would have generated more clientele.
Mhm.
Yes.
That makes sense. So in addition to you told us you're an interior designer, you're a scientist, and you have all these other things. You're a graphic designer, as I understand. You've built websites, you've done all of these wonderful things that are outside of the sphere of interior design. How do you know which way to go and how do you show up in your industry so that people will see you and will hire you to do this work? Is it how does that work?
Uh, yes, I built my own website. And I'm a creative person and I'm resourceful and talented. So it's you want to do something, and um, if you're trying to run a business on your own and you're not married, um, it's expensive. I'm living in DC. DC is an expensive city. So to support yourself and to support the business, there's not a lot of money to hire people to do all of these things that you need them to do. So you become resourceful and you learn how to, build websites or design your logo or your business card or whatever the thing is. You learn how to use your resources to get done what you need to get done to position yourself to be successful. Um, as far as marketing, it's more so you create a good product and um, try to get it out there, and you know the proof is in the proof is in the pudding.
Mhm. Let me ask you this, I've heard you say this a couple of times that Black people do not support Black-owned businesses. Can you share some of your thoughts about that?
Um, I think that there can at times be a there's not a great diversity of Black-owned businesses in the first place. Generally, it's you have your barbers, you have your hairstylists, you have your soul food restaurants, and then you may have someone selling apparel here and there. But there's not this wide breadth of like Black-owned businesses where you can say, you know, hey, I want to go to the Black-owned party store and buy materials to uh, create a space to throw a party. That's just an example. And so in that space, what happens is if you have Black-owned businesses that are not funded, they are basically funding themselves based on the income that they are bringing in. It can cause problems in that maybe they run out of certain things that they have, on the menu or certain products that they sell in the store, or maybe they don't have reliable staff because they can't pay decent salaries. And what happens is you have Black people that want to support these businesses, but when they encounter these challenges, it gives them a negative opinion of these types of businesses because they are used to businesses that are receiving bank funding and can afford to, pay a decent salary and can, order or, make sure that their orders are coming in a timely fashion. Is if something is about to run out, they're able to, before it runs out, place that order instead of relying on a customer to come in the door and purchase that thing before they can order another one. Yeah. So I think that when you have people in there encountering these and maybe they're not in the business sphere where they can understand what challenges these Black businesses are facing, their first thought is like something negative. Mm-hmm. And they associate that and they say, well, I don't want to support Black businesses. And I think that just, that probably has a lot to do with it.
Yeah. I think you're right. Have you, and I meant to ask you this earlier, have you ever designed a space from, just from the ground up, like everything, having done the entire spectrum from designing the house shape and form, and then all the rooms in the house and all of that stuff? Have you ever done that? Mm-hmm. Was that challenging?
No. I think that the first time you do anything, you're a little bit unsure, but it's not challenging. You know what you're capable of doing. You know that you're up to the task, and you bring in the people that you need to help you accomplish what you need, what you're trying to accomplish. But it's no more challenging than if you're designing a living room versus if you're building a whole house. One just takes a little bit more time.
Excellent. And have you built very many houses in your career?
I personally haven't built them, but I've designed them, yes.
Yes, that's what I meant. You have designed, yeah, absolutely. We have about 7 or 8 minutes, but let me ask you a few questions. So moving to where we are in America as Black people, what are your thoughts about that?
I'm hopeful. I am hopeful that we will see a change. I am surprised by the sudden acknowledgement of the pain and some of these companies and statues and just people, the recognition that these things are racist. I'm very surprised at the sudden acknowledgement of that, or the sudden realization. But I'm happy that it's happening. I hope that these companies are taking it beyond just the symbolic gestures and actually making efforts to diversify their boards, to diversify their personnel, to stock their shelves and make sure that they are actually supporting Black people and believing that Black lives matter and Black businesses matter and Black designers matter and all the myriad sectors that we exist within, that they are recognizing and doing something to make sure that they acknowledge that Black people matter.
Do you think all the protests and all the things that's happened since Mr. Floyd's death and other Black people who have died will result in change in our lifetime?
Yes, I think we're already seeing it.
Excellent. Well, you have 5 minutes. I leave the last 5 minutes to you to say whatever you may need to say. As I tell everybody, this is a recorded conversation. Once it's uploaded and converted, once it's converted, I will send you a link to it, and you can say whether we keep it or we do it over or we don't do it at all. Okay?
Sure.
That's 5 minutes, all yours.
I don't really know. I don't really have anything. else to say. I think we're in a very interesting time in the world right now. And as I said, I really do hope that we do see change. Some days I'm encouraged, other days I am disheartened. You talk to people, and the first thing they talk about is the property that is being destroyed because of the protests, or uh, and that's very disheartening, because in my mind, uh, that thought, it harkens right back to slavery, where property is more important than humanity. Um, a man lost his life. Men continue to lose their lives, men and women. More people have died from police brutality since George Floyd was killed. And to not understand that there are people who are tired of seeing, at the end of the day, this man, he had children, he has a family, he has people in his life that loved him, and sending your family out into the world and not knowing if they're going to come back or if they're going to be harmed in some sort of way, because of some racist thing or some discrimination or someone's bias. I mean, you encounter it literally every day, these microaggressions that Black and brown people encounter, and we bottle them inside because it's just easier to restrain yourself and hold back, because you don't know if you allow the microaggression to agitate you and you actually vent or express yourself, how it will in turn impact you, or whether you'll lose your job, or will you be arrested, or will you be shot dead in the street. You don't know. So you as a Black person, you walk around, and it doesn't matter if you're at the top of the food chain or the bottom of the food chain. Just being in Black skin, you have a target on your back, and you don't even have to do anything to have someone shoot at that target. And I don't mean shoot literally, but just, you can walk down the street and someone will say something to remind you that you're Black and that you may possibly be in an unsafe space.
And were you going to say something else?
No, you go ahead.
Yeah, that's pretty powerful. I wish more people heard it and understood exactly what you just said. That's really, really powerful. What is it like to be in Black skin, knowing every day of your life you have a target? It's unfortunate. Thank you for doing this with me, and I hope you will do another with me. We can do a little bit more, talk about design and colors and crayons and all the beautiful colors in the world, because someone said to me a couple of weeks ago that if you had a box of all white crayons, you wouldn't have very much decorative stuff. And I thought of you when I heard it. I'm like, if you had a box and you had nothing but white crayons, what would you have?
You don't have a lot of options. You don't have a lot of diversity. And I think that's a profound thing to say, because that's one thing I think, that's how you have these messages and these advertisements that so totally miss the mark of what they're trying to convey, or maybe that is what they're trying to convey. But because you don't have whoever was in the room, there was no diversity. So you're not considering a variety of perspectives that come from different backgrounds and different places. And so you just have this one line of thinking. And the thought is that I think most white people tend to believe like, oh, I'm not racist, but you can't tell. If I tell you that something is racist to me, you cannot say it's not.
Right.
And if you're only thinking from this perspective, if I'm at a party and I'm the only Black person in the room and I'm standing amongst a group of people, and someone just randomly comes up to me and says, oh, I love Michael Jackson. Just, out of nowhere. It's, well, to that person, that may not seem like a big deal, but that's the microaggression that I'm referring to, because that person saw that I was Black, and whether they were trying to find some common ground because I look like someone they might want to talk to, it's like you just made me aware. And not that I'm trying to forget, I'm very happy and proud to be Black, but in a space, it's like, would you just randomly go up to, in a room full of all white person, would another white person just go up to a group of white people and just say, apropos of nothing, I like Kenny Rogers? It's like, okay, what do you want me to do with that? I'm not, and I'm not trying to be a spokesperson for all Black people. I can't do that. Each one of us is different. We're not, we're not a monolith, but the various stories that I've heard since the murder of George Floyd, I've been just amazed at how many Black people have the exact same story. And it doesn't matter if they're the housekeeper or if they're the CEO. Like, every single person has these stories of either not feeling safe, being called racial slurs, or just being reminded in a very awkward and unnecessary way that they are Black, as if we don't wake up every morning and know that.
Have you ever been called a racial slur?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
How did you respond to it?
Well, at the time, the first time that I remember, I was 10 years old, and I was on the school bus, and I lived in Shelton, Connecticut, and the school was predominantly white. I think maybe there were 6 Black people in the entire school. And there was a little boy on my school bus who would call me the N-word every day. And I remember I didn't know what to do. I knew it was a bad thing, but I didn't know, I'm 10 years old. I don't know what to do with that. Like, you already know that you're different. You can see that you're different. And no one said anything. No one else like came to my rescue or said anything. And I thought, I don't know what to do with this, so I'm just gonna stay quiet. And one day, I got off the bus and it snowed. There was a lot of snow, and there were 2 other girls who lived in my neighborhood, and we were friends. And so I was like turning around to wave goodbye, but my body was still like walking forward. And I walked into a stop sign, and the boy yelled off the bus, out the window, look at the little N-word walking to the pole. And everybody on the bus, I just heard laughter. And I just remember being like so embarrassed, and like, walking home with tears coming out of my eyes, because like I felt humiliated. Mm-hmm. And I didn't know how to tell anyone, because I didn't want to get in trouble. I don't know why I thought I would get in trouble, but I just didn't know how to express it. And eventually I did, and I ended up transferring out of that school. But that was the first time. And I mean, even in DC, a place that's like very diverse, I remember when I first moved there, I was just amazed, because it was the first time that really I saw like Black people everywhere, from the top level all the way down to the bottom. There wasn't this feeling when you walk into a restaurant or you walk into a store that you don't belong, because there are Black people working in the store, there are Black people shopping in the store, there, you know, it was just so much diversity and so much, just so many Black people that it just didn't feel like a place where you didn't belong. And um, I remember one night I was out with my friend and we were going to a party and we were all dressed up and, you know, we thought we looked cute and we're like walking down the street and this guy looks at me and says, um, where's the chicken, the fried chicken and the watermelon?
Hmm.
And I mean, it was just such a, I mean, if you can imagine, you know, being in your 20s and you're walking down the street and you're in your dress and you think you look so cute and, you know, someone says that and it just kind of like totally pops your bubble.
Yeah.
And it's what did I do to you? Like, I didn't even, I didn't even see you until you said that. It's like, why? Yeah, it's just mind-boggling. It's really just, it's just mind-boggling the ways in which people are hateful and why they do the things that they do.
Well, I have one last question because I need to go, but I have one last question. You are a runner, yes?
Yes,
You run in a few marathons and things like that, correct?
correct.
What is 8 minutes and 46 seconds to a runner?
It's about a mile, depending on how fast you are. I would say probably for the average person, that's running a mile.
8 minutes and
Berenice
40.
Montoya. Berenice Montoya.
Running a marathon.
Running 8 minutes and 46 seconds. It takes you about, uh, you know, I would say probably your average consistent runner is going to take them about uh, 9 minutes or so to run a mile. That's, you know, yeah.
So for 8 minutes and 46 seconds, a police officer had his knee on a man's neck. And according to what you just said to me, that's a mile. That's a mile, depending on how you run, but that's a mile. And I take it it's not easy just to run a mile. I'm sure people run hundreds of miles, but I mean, it's not easy just to run a mile.
I mean, it depends on your level of fitness. If you're like me, the first mile is usually like, you know, getting over that hump. It's like you know, you have to get all the thoughts that are in your head about running this mile. And, you know, if there's any type of resistance, if you have any stress, it's like that first mile is, you know, kind of where you work all of that out so you can kind of find your, you know, the place where you sort of glide through it and it's not painful and yeah.
Yeah. So 8 minutes and 46 seconds on some man's neck. So as you said, getting over the hump, getting yourself in the right groove, 8 minutes and 46 seconds.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think?
I think it's awful. And I think that the fact that these people, they didn't care about his humanity. You know, I think that at the end of the day, my big thing with all of these instances is humanity. You know, it's a person. You know, there's no compassion. There's no, you know, I hear people equate, you know, people to animals and savages, et cetera, et cetera. And it's like, there's no humanity. If you cannot see another person suffering and take it upon yourself to think what if that were me in that person's shoes? It doesn't mean that if you see me and you think, oh, Black people, they're savages, they're animals, whatever, you think you got to hold your purse, or it doesn't take away from my humanity.
Right.
It takes away from yours. I am no less human because you can't see that in me.
Right.
And the fact that you can't, that says more about you.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for chatting with me. I hope you'll do another with me. Talk some more about interior design, which is an area I have very little knowledge and experience with, but I hope you'll do another one of these with me. So thank you very much. Once the video is converted, I will send you a link so you can look at it. And if you approve, we will upload it. And if not, we can do over or not do one at all, whichever is easiest for you.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Stay safe.
You too.